So I have to do a comparison video between my 20-ton Super Handy and the new 20-ton Husky I just got. And I gotta tell you, there's a world of difference between these two, even though they're technically the same thing. They're both 20-ton rated. They're both technically half beam construction, even though there really isn't a beam on that. There is on this. They're both 6.5/7 horsepower gas engines that are Honda clones. 7 horsepower Alpha Works, 7 horsepower Husky, but they just slapped those stickers on there. They're probably all made in a pretty similar factory. But just looking at these though, you can tell there's such a huge difference, because this one is so small. And somebody had told, a few people have said in the comments on some of the videos on this Super Handy, they said there's no way that's a 20-ton. And they're probably right. I honestly don't think that this thing even got close to exerting 20 tons of force, because if it did, it would split itself directly in half. No doubt. And this one, this weighs 140 pounds, and this weighs 402. And the beam on here is very heavy, thick steel. That's got to be at least an inch thick. Maybe 3/8 steel, maybe ½ inch. Just way heavier built. I mean, look at the wedge on this thing. And on this one, the wedge is on the cylinder, on the ram, that pushes against a plate, whereas this one, there's a plate on the cylinder that pushes against a wedge. And I could easily see 40,000 pounds of force being on this, but not on that one. And in the videos I have on this Super Handy, I've discussed kind of all the faults that this thing has. Obviously, the unsupported cylinder, I think, is the biggest issue with this unit. But it all depends on the circumstances, really, though, because on this one, this isn't a full beam, whereas the full beam ones usually have a few pieces of metal welded to the end of the cylinder, and then there's a pin, so then the full cylinder is supported, but not in this case. But there is, it's probably hard to see, but there's an extremely thick set of, you could say pegs, or whatever you want to call these things, just circular supports that are welded to the cylinder that push up against this 3/8 or ½ inch plate. And it's supported in there by this guard that has 8 bolts, 4 on each side. And that just kind of guards the wedge, as well as holds the cylinder against that plate. And that plate goes all the way down here, and it's welded in really well. And what I have said 1,000 times about the Super Handy is when this plate comes out and you're trying to split, there's nothing supporting this. It is just free floating right where it's at across the whole length of the structure. And so that cylinder can bend sideways, it can go up, it can go down, it can bend itself so easy, and I'm lucky it hasn't done it yet. But I've said 1,000 times that there needs to be something built on here, either some guides to keep it straight or something, and it doesn't have any of that, but this one does. It's got a plate welded on the bottom of the wedge that follows. There's kind of a lip here. It goes underneath of it, so it's supported side to side and up and down. It can't go any direction other than straight out and straight back in. And that's exactly how it should be. And I'm not worried at all that this is a half beam design. I think it's heavy duty enough, it should be just fine. And another thing I always brought up is basically the structure of this whole thing doubles as a hydraulic oil reservoir. And so this isn't a beam, this is literally a box made out of, I have no idea how thick of plate steel, but this is a hollow box full of hydraulic oil. And I've noticed when I was splitting with this, some of the bigger pieces that I was splitting would push the top of this wedge outward, putting stress right here on this reservoir. And I'm not kidding you, if you had a good enough piece of wood and this thing truly exerted close to 40,000 pounds of force, I think this thing would just split itself right in half. It'd either bend the cylinder, break the cylinder off, or it would bend the wedge or break the wedge off or split the reservoir in half. I mean, it's just a terrible, terrible design. It is so bad. And that's part of the reason I wanted to get a new splitter. I got a good deal on this unit. That's kind of why I got it, but I was already looking for something else because this thing is so sketchy that I'd never enjoyed using it, because every piece of wood that I split, I was afraid something was going to fail on this, and I honestly have no idea what I'm going to do with this right now, but it's a bad design. And of course they put the hydraulic oil tank is, you know, it's kind of the axle frame of this thing, so it's separate, and then they could actually use a beam on here that's strong and made to be structurally sound, you know, instead of using the hydraulic oil tank as the structure. So I'm not an engineer, I'm not, you know, a genius on any of this stuff, but it's just blatantly obvious the differences, even though they're technically on paper the same thing. You know, that's how different two products can be. And no, this Husky is not an American made unit, it's imported. It didn't say where from. I'm assuming probably China, but there's a huge quality difference between the two, even though they're both imported products. Even the hydraulic hoses on this thing seem way better quality. It's even got a solid line on top of this cylinder. These ones are all, you know, this isn't a solid one, they're all flex hoses. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate this log splitter. You know, it's worked so far. I've split quite a bit of wood with it. It's just sketchy. It's just not a good design. And I've said this before too, I got this thing on sale for like $565 or $575 or $560 or something on Amazon, plus I think $40 for shipping. I thought I got a good deal on this thing, which I kind of did, because now I'm seeing these for like between $700 to $1,200 new delivered, and this entire thing was $800 brand new. And of course I had to pick it up from the store, you know, but you know, it was delivered by freight to the store, and then the store, I'm assuming, assembled it or whatever, and then I bought it and pulled it home. There's just a huge quality difference here, and like I've said before in my other videos, I understand their whole idea behind this thing. They wanted to make a gas log splitter that could be disassembled and consolidated enough into a box that it would be able to get delivered by FedEx and UPS and whoever. And they accomplished that with this unit, but the design they came up with to accomplish that is full of red flags. So I think engineering and design and all that's always fascinating, and so that's why I think these two things are interesting together, because of how they're practically the same thing, but they're worlds apart. So I just thought I'd share that. And like I always say, I do not recommend this super handy to anybody. That's my opinion. That doesn't mean that if you buy one, it's gonna fail on you right away and cause you headaches. And it hasn't broke on me yet, but I'm aware that it can break, and so I baby this thing really bad when I'm using it, and I'm always sweating when I'm using it because I'm thinking, oh, I'm about to snap this thing in half. And there are a few logs I've had on here that weren't even that big that this thing was struggling with, and it would keep going, but as it kept going, it would start bending this reservoir, so then I wouldn't, force it. And you don't want that out of a product. You don't want to be tiptoeing around your product because you're afraid of breakage and mechanical failure and structural failure and all that. This thing here, you just keep going. Let it do its thing. No big deal. You can put your headphones on and listen to music, and you don't have to be staring at the end of the beam construction waiting for it to break, because it's not going to. It just isn't. I don't have any oak or anything like that, but I don't think I have any wood that this thing won't split. So that's a lot of stress off your mind when you're splitting wood. And in terms of longevity, if I keep going out and finding wood at different places, and I know a lot of people, I know some farmers, I know some company owners that will give me wood, whatever. I just have to go pick it up with my truck. So looking down the road, I have a lot of stuff I can split. I need a splitter that's going to be lasting long enough to do so, and this one is not it. So no idea what I'm doing with this one yet, but for now I'm going to shove it in my shed and forget about it. And this beauty right here I'm going to keep in my garage. And stay tuned, because I'll obviously do a review on it after I use it for a while. But I am going to use this garden tractor, and I'm going to make some kind of thing on the back so I can tow this around. I could tow it behind my Coyote, but I'd have to disconnect it when I put my Coyote back in my garage. So I want to connect this to this garden tractor and be able to just back it into my garage hooked up, which it's not heavy. One person can move this thing around pretty easy on your own, depending on how in shape you are and stuff, but it's not too bad. It's not too heavy. But anyways, stay tuned. I'll have more videos on this one for sure, and we'll see what lies in store for this one. Thanks for watching.